Morning. My name is Ed Flynn, and I am the chair of the Committee on City, Neighborhood Services, Veteran, and Military Affairs. I want to remind you that this is a public hearing. It is being recorded, broadcast live on channel Comcast 8, RCN 82, Verizon 1964, and webcast boston.gov/City Council TV. Please silence your cell phones, other devices. We will also take public testimony and appreciate it if you would sign in to testify. At the start of your testimony, please state your name, affiliation, and residence. Today's hearing is on docket 1105. The matter is sponsored by the mayor, referred to this committee. Docket 1105, message in order authorizing the City of Boston accept and expend a grant from Verizon Wireless for an amount of $1,500,000. The purpose of this grant is to fund digital equity programs and to support a smart city fellow position. At this time, I would like to introduce the administration officials that are present here. Chief Chris Osgood, Chris Carter, and Casey Wilson. Would you guys like to give an opening statement and maybe give your titles as well, please?
Absolutely. I'm Chris Osgood. I have the honor of serving as Mayor Walsh's Chief of Streets, and happy to sort of start from the three of us. I'm joined here, as you mentioned, by Casey Brock Wilson from the Mayor's Office and Chris Carter, who co-chairs the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics. I also want to recognize David Elgis, who serves as the Mayor's Chief Information Officer, who's also here with us today. Today, as you mentioned, we are seeking your approval on a $1.5 million accept and expend from Verizon Wireless. And this investment allows us to advance two key goals for the city, for the administration, and for the mayor. The first of those is a $1 million investment into digital equity, as you referenced, and a $500,000 investment in technology that helps us make our streets safer, improves our ability to maintain our streets, and helps make our streets simply more engaging and more delightful for all of our constituents. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Casey, who will talk about digital equity, and to Chris, who will talk about technology on our streets. But I just want to give a little bit of context for where this funding is coming from. In 2016, the City of Boston signed an agreement with Verizon Wireless governing the essentially installation or attachment of antennas on city streetlights. Sort of the broad outlines of that agreement and that work is largely managed or sort of determined through the FCC, but there are specifically allowed within this agreement some elements around things like permitting, annual fees, maintenance responsibilities, et cetera. Last fall, we actually updated that agreement, and as part of that update, actually included these two investments that Verizon will be making to the City of Boston. We think both these investments are things which our constituents are looking for, are things that help us move forward on some of the key goals that we all have as a city. So I will turn it over first to Casey and then to Chris to talk about how that money will be making a difference in people's lives in Boston.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, and thank you, Chris and Councilor Flynn. We are really excited about this investment in digital equity, and on behalf of Ann Schweiger, who is actually out in the field working with one of our Digital Equity Fund grantees today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Digital Equity Fund, the history of it, and how it's impacted the residents of Boston. So the Digital Equity Fund is overseen by the Department of Innovation and Technology and the Digital Fund Council, which is an external group that is responsible for reviewing applications and selecting the recipients and making recommendations. The fund councils are appointed by the mayor and serve 3-year terms. To qualify for a grant, the nonprofit organizations must be Boston-based and serve Boston residents. This grant program started in 2018 with a $35,000 investment from Mayor Walsh, and the Castle Square Tenants organization was awarded the first grant and created a technology, audiovisual college course and internship program with BFIT. In its second year, we were very excited to see increased grant-making power of $100,000 in FY19, and we are able to award 3 grants. The 3 grantees this year are La Alianza Hispana, Mujeres Unidas Avanzado, and the South End Technology Center, as I mentioned earlier. I think what's really important to note is that the increase in interest over the past 2 years has been significant. When it launched in the fall of 2017, we received 8 applications for the $35,000 grant. In FY19, we received 30 proposals from 29 organizations, and we were only able to award 3 grants. I think what is really exciting about this additional $1 million investment is that we will be able to expand on the goals of the Digital Equity Fund by awarding more grants to community organizations and supporting the goals of digital equity. Just at a high level, the way we're thinking about digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information, technology capacity needed for full participation in society, democracy, and the economy. We believe it is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. So with that, I'll hand it over to Chris.
Thank you, Casey. I'm Chris Carter, I co-chair of the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics. We're working on a broad range of different prototypes and experiments to improve the lives of people in the city of Boston. So thank you, Councilor Flynn, for holding this hearing on this important issue. We're looking forward to the council passing this and putting these dollars to work for residents in the city of Boston. Increasingly, cities are being faced with complex decisions and trade-offs of the use of technology in our public realm, our streets, our sidewalks, our parks, from sensors to video cameras to kiosks. Our physical space is increasingly being integrated with our digital public space. So over the last year, the Mayor's Office of New Urban Mechanics, with funding from the Knight Foundation, has been working with Emerson Engagement Lab and community members on a pilot called Beta Blocks as a way to navigate some of these tough conversations. We've done deployments in Codman Square, Lower Alston, Chinatown, the Copley Central Library, and actually this week, if you went down on the mezzanine in City Hall, you would see a portion of that engagement strategy where we've talked to hundreds of residents about how they think technology can improve their lives and what sort of questions or concerns they might have. The Smart Cities Fellow, or what we have renamed the Technologies for the Public Realm position, is funded through a grant from Verizon to further this work of the Beta Blocks project. It works to improve city operations, trust, transparency, and the quality of experiences of those living, working, and visiting the city of Boston. This person has a role that will have a dual mandate to work closely with city departments to understand what their needs are and maybe the opportunities for technological solutions. And it will also work with community groups to identify their needs and integrate their concerns into those prototypes and policies. So thank you for supporting the city's efforts to continue being a global thought leader on the responsible use of technology and improve people's lives and experiences. I think we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chris, and to Casey and to Chris as well. Can you, I know you mentioned at the beginning the Castle Square grant. I actually had the opportunity to visit there many times, and I do see the great work that they're doing on that grant. So I know the money that is being spent is really helping a lot of people in need. How is this grant helping currently, or will help our immigrant community in Boston?
Great question, Councilor. I think as you look at the awardees this year for the grant, we were really excited to see a wide variety of applications. You know, I mentioned earlier we had 30 applications this year for $100,000. So we were only able to award 3. I think all of them, actually all 3 grantees, serve our immigrant communities. So La Alianza in particular is using the $35,000 grant to empower individuals and strengthen the Latino community by leveraging partnerships and providing social, educational, and health services through technology. Mujeres Unidas Avanzado is specifically focused on helping Latinas who have been on the outskirts of society, whether they're low income, formerly incarcerated, or living in shelters, and helping these people become self-sufficient and take on leadership roles and organizing roles within their community. The South End Technology Center, as you know as well, has a couple of fantastic programs that serve immigrants, and specifically they are focused on STEAM and STEM for the population that's served there. As you know, it's a wide variety of immigrant communities that live in the South End as well.
No, thank you, and I'm glad to hear that the program is helping Latino and Latina residents across our city. I'm also glad that it's also helping needy and immigrant neighbors. What's your outreach with the Boston Housing Authority?
Yeah, so the grant program is, we distributed through a wide variety of, different ways. So through the city's funding update, we send it out to department heads. We make sure that lots of different departments know that this resource is available. And so BHA certainly pushed it down to some of their tenants associations to make sure that they could apply. I think we would like to see more there and to use the Castle Square example as something that could be done in other BHA properties with additional funds like this.
Okay. What is the communication you have with the city's 311 system? A lot of my residents, as you may know, may not speak English, or they might speak Cantonese, or they might speak Spanish. They often have to call 311. They don't necessarily have the computer access to log in something into the 311 computer system. But I'm always concerned about my constituents that do not speak English and making sure that their voices are heard at City Hall. How are you communicating with 311, and how can we better streamline the communication system for non-English speaking residents?
I can start. Do you want to talk language access? Yeah. So I would say two things. The first, across the board, the mayor has been investing in sort of improving language access with the City of Boston for City of Boston services. A lot of that's focused through the mayor's office of civic engagement and our 311 office. In addition to thinking about how we improve language access at 311, we are also looking at how the city's mobile app, Boss 311, can also work in a variety of different languages right now, and that's sort of part of the work that many of us in this room, including David, are working on.
And I think the other exciting thing that we've seen, at least around City Hall too, is a language identification card. So for many of the front service staff who are the first person someone sees when they walk into City Hall, if they aren't able to communicate in that language with a constituent, the ability to use the language identification card to start the process so that we can find someone to make sure that the conversation can happen in their first language, I think has been a huge step forward in the last year.
No, thank you. That's probably one of the issues I've spent the most time on is language access, and I would like if you would be able to keep me posted on some of the outreach that you're doing on language access and the progress that you are making. I know it's a very important issue in my district especially. Yep. And I think my final question is, can you, as we approach the Census 2020, as it relates to, again, residents that may not speak English, it's often difficult for them to engage the Census Bureau, making sure that their voices are heard. I know the mayor is doing a lot of great outreach on it. I've been working with various organizations, including the Chinese Progressive Association, on making sure my residents, their voices counted in the census. But are you doing any type of outreach as it relates to advanced technology or technology, making sure that our immigrant community, their voice is heard during the Census 2020, and what technology might be available to them to help in the process?
So it might not be any of the three of us who are working specifically on that, but we can get you a rundown of everything which the city is doing as we do census outreach. That's largely being handled through IGR, and we have a lead there who we can get you a briefing on.
The only thing I'll add is one of the things we did do, as you know, the mayor made a $100,000 investment for Census 2020. And through that grant making program, we specifically made sure to reach out to all 30 of the organizations who applied this year for the Digital Equity Fund as well, with the idea that technology could facilitate some of the work that needs to be done for the 2020 census. So, we are trying to make sure that digital equity is a part of that pool that we're investing in for Census 2020 as well.
I'll add one additional thing. One of the projects that we've been working on through the beta blocks has been deploying these sort of digital community bulletin boards as experiments in a couple different neighborhoods. Chinatown is one of those, which allows community members to post in whatever their language of choice might be to a digital sign in the neighborhood. So we've seen a lot of activity on that sign in sort of native Mandarin or other languages that are non-English speaking to communicate to that neighborhood about community events or activities or ways that they can engage civically.
Thank you. And as it relates to digital equity, I know I'm very happy that the mayor and the administration is going to build a permanent library in Chinatown. What type of digital equity and technology will we have for the residents of Chinatown? Many of them, again, might be elderly. A lot of them don't use a computer, limited technology skills. How can we educate or train some of our elderly residents, immigrant residents, on this technology?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the design of the library, but I do know, and having worked with some of the BPL team, they do work with the central office with the various librarians to make sure that the digital equity trainings that they do at central office can be extended to all the branches. So we can certainly get more information on that for you, but I don't know if anyone else has anything else to add there.
As the library goes forward, would you, and Chris, would you maybe work with David Leonard's group, the library staff, and making sure that, you know, as we focus on educating and training our elderly and in, you know, Chinese community that may speak Cantonese, if we can make sure that their input is covered, and, you know, maybe we can try various programs to train and educate them on computer skills. I think it would go over very well in the Chinatown community.
We'll follow up on that, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you to the mayor's office, to Mayor Walsh, to Chris, and to Casey, and to Chris for your leadership on this important issue. I want to say thank you to Juan Lopez for helping coordinate this, and Neil Doherty from the mayor's office as well. I'm looking forward to giving an update at the next City Council hearing on this grant, and I'm going to recommend that the City Council vote and pass the grant. And again, I want to say thank you for your leadership on this important issue. I just want to ask if there's anyone in the audience that does want to testify. I don't think anyone has signed up, so at this time, this hearing is concluded. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor.